Hi, this is Mike Carruthers, the producer of the Storytelling Project. My friends, you're in for a special treat today. Of many conversations, talking with Denise Drummond is one of my favorites. In a wide-ranging conversation, Denise's story includes growing up in Montreal, Corlinda's family, race, work, the loss of a child and brother, faith, humor, and our shared distaste for rap and hip-hop. This conversation is recorded September 19th, 2020 at Eagle Ridge United Church, Coquitlam, British Columbia. Enjoy.
My full name?
Yes.
Denise Josephine Drummond.
Thank you so much for doing this, Denise. So I think I talked to you briefly last week about some things we might want to talk about, and I thought maybe what I was really interested in hearing from you is what was it like growing up? Where did you grow up again?
I grew up in Montreal, well, on the south shore of Montreal, so in the suburbs of Montreal.
And the south shore is kind of Anglophone, isn't it? Or?
No, actually it's not. There are sections of it that are Anglophone. Montreal, especially back then, you had areas that were more English than not. Where we grew up, it was really weird because of name change, but in St. Hubert, one side was predominantly English, where my parents originally moved to. But when they bought a new house, it was predominantly French. So on our block, we had 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 families that were English. All the rest were French.
Now, what I thought was really interesting talking to you briefly this week is we have this whole awareness of Black Lives Matter and that the United Church is, and this congregation was even going to do some training about how to be an anti-racist. And having grown up in white British Columbia in a predominantly white milieu, I just thought that would be really interesting, especially given the times we're living in now, that you might speak to me about growing up Black in Canada, Black in Montreal. And I think you had really interesting things to say about how the people were basically divided in Montreal at that time.
Yes, for us growing up, and I was the only Black child in my class, but that never bothered me. You still had the name calling and everything else. Being the rough and tumble kid, it never really bothered me because I just beat you up if you happened to call me a name I didn't like. But what was more evident growing up was, for us, racism was English and French, Protestant and Catholic. It wasn't so much the color. Yeah, it was always there. It was undertoned, especially in Canada. A lot of prejudice when it comes to color isn't evident like it is in the States. But in Montreal, or where we grew up, it was more the French, English, Protestant, Catholic that were separated, that you really had problems with.
Okay, yeah, that was. So how did you end up coming to Coquitlam? I mean, you lived just in Montreal, Coquitlam. Tell me.
No, grew up in Montreal, like I said. Lived in Edmonton for 10 years. Went back to Montreal after a married, divorce with a daughter. Stayed there for at least another 10 years. Went back to Edmonton. Actually, it was more than 10 years. Went back to Edmonton, worked there for 10 years because I had a job offer there. And life situations changed. When I first moved back to Edmonton, my mom had passed away. Dad had already passed away. And then in 2009, my daughter passed away. She was 27 years old. And at that point in time, my sister and I sort of looked and said, well, where do we want to retire? And we thought about BC, but it never went anywhere. And then 2 years later, my eldest brother passed away. So it really hit home. And my youngest brother lives here in downtown Vancouver. And we sort of looked at each other and reevaluated where we were and what was holding us in Alberta, and thought that at that point in time in our lives, we wanted the family circle, because there was only the 3 siblings left, to be back in the same city within commuting distance. I was fortunate where I worked, they let me bring my job with me. And since I was going to be working out of Port Coquitlam, Coquitlam was the obvious choice.
And you live now with your sister, right?
Yes, my sister and I have lived together, well, besides all our lives, but since 2003.
Okay.
Yes.
I had no idea about the lost your daughter. To get through something like that must have been just incredible. It still is.
She's always with us. I feel that I was very privileged that God loaned her to me. He told me that he promises us for our lifetime. He never told me how long that life would be. So I had her for 27 years before he took her back.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Is there any story you want to tell me about your life? Is some fun thing that happened to you or something about your career?
We grew up, our family dynamics were, we grew up in a really fun family. You always had people coming in, coming out. While there was 6 of us, okay, it doesn't mean that come mealtime there was only 6 eating at the table. Okay, you get a lot of families where there's a lot of dissension. We grew up as a very close family. That's why I'm here and we're here in BC and my brother's downtown, right? It's as simple as that. So those dynamics are really good. And I'm also very privileged because me and my sister are best friends. So we have the same interests. We do most things together. And it's something that a lot of families don't have. My mom and dad, they were generous people. Yeah. Okay. And I think they taught us the value of what family was, what it meant to give to others, and to accept people for who they are and what they are, no matter what their situation is. So for that, I'm lucky.
I'm so lucky to have you say that, because it's sort of the concept of getting to know people, as individuals, I think it's so important in our society. And yeah, thank you for that.
Not a problem whatsoever. My dad was fun. My mom too. But my dad, I think if he was a great man, the one thing that I can think about him offhand, and I often tell people about it, is I can honestly say my dad never broke a promise. If my dad promised you something, it was going to happen. Like most people, every now and then he'd go out and tie one on, as they say. And the next morning, us nice people in our house would tell Dad that he promised us something. And he'd look at my mom and he'd say, "Did I tell?" And she'd say, "Yeah. And you promised me." And he'd look at us and, "Did I?" "Yes." And I can tell you that no matter what it was, we would get it because he promised it. As far as he knew, his word was his boss. That's exactly it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Denise, I understand you recently retired, and now you're working as the office administrator here at Eagle Ridge. How did you get this job? How did you become our
office administrator?
Yeah.
Well, life's funny, and I do believe that things happen for a reason and at the timing of God. So I was senior project manager for my company in IT applications. My specialty is EDI. And during COVID, they packaged and laid some people off. I knew I was on the short end of the stick just because of situation. So come April 29th, all of a sudden, I'm retired. Doesn't bother me. Yay! And a couple of months later, Linda, our old office administrator, made the decision to move to Nova Scotia. Yes. So Dave and I had a conversation. He asked me if I was interested. So my response to him was, "Yeah, I am, but there's 2 things. 1, I never want to work full-time again. And 2, I can't collect a salary for over a year because of the package I have." Yeah, sure. So we came up with the solution where I'm volunteering my time, and I'm office administrator, and I'm enjoying it.
And as a church user here, I'm certainly enjoying it.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Now, I don't ask these questions of everyone, but they're kind of my backup of people I think I'd like to hear the answer to these questions from. This is from the very famous actor studios, where they have famous people like yourself would sit down and the interview would ask them some questions, just to open-ended questions that might find out more about the person in front of you. So one of the questions is, what is your favorite word?
I don't think I have a favorite word. I guess be happy.
What is your least favorite word?
Well, it's the N word.
Yeah.
That is very no today. If you want to set red flags off, use it. And it doesn't matter what your race is.
Yeah.
It's not a polite word no matter what language. And the F word. There's no reason to use it.
Yeah, I'm working on that one. Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Music.
Any particular music?
No. Well, I like most music.
Yeah.
When it comes to rap, no. There's not a lot of good rap out there as far as I'm concerned.
You and I are on the same page. I have an employee who used to work with me when this music came out first, hip hop.
Yes.
And I love this man. But we had one rule when we were going to a job site. If I'm in the vehicle, that music cannot be on.
I agree with that totally. Funny story, when my daughter was a teen and we'd gone into a music store and she was looking at cassettes, and over their speaker system, they were playing rap, and I swear every second word was a swear word. And every time I heard it, my temperature would go up a little more. Finally, I turned around, I walked up to the counter, I said to the guy, "Excuse me, can you change the music? Because it's offending my ears." And after my daughter told me to stop, he changed the music, and I was quite happy.
Well, having said that, what is your favorite curse word?
Shit.
Okay. My mother used to say all conversations turn to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If heaven exists, and I think you believe that heaven does exist,
Yes, it does.
what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome, the rest of your family is here.
That's sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome.